What I'm saying is,
dude. You are a man's man, and you're a brilliant dude. Be straight with me. Be straight with me right now. Do you think the current leadership of the Democratic Party specifically is beholden to the American people or the global community?
I have no idea who they're beholden to at this point. I really don't. I don't know how to answer that question. I honestly don't know. I wish I could say that they're beholden to the American people, but given my personal experience of the last year, I don't know who they're beholden to. I really don't. I also tell you this: they have a problem on their hands because they lost my vote, and they haven't seemed to figure that out yet. There's a sizable portion of people like me who, if Trump runs again, I'm not going to vote for Biden. I'm not going to vote for Trump, and that's a problem. They have unified government.
This is why I think it's so important DeSantis runs, man.
They have unified. They've unified government, and yet they can't seem to accomplish anything. And you're right. They don't seem to be a party that cares about the average American worker anymore. And I think that's honestly why Hillary. One of the biggest reasons why Hillary was a terrible candidate to run in the first place, considering where she was politically in terms of how the American people saw her.
Agreed, but I agree with you. She had active disdain for the plebeian.
And that's the thing about it, right? Is Trump appealed to a bunch of people who feel like they've been left behind, that they've been abandoned, right? That nobody has their back.
Because they have been.
Right, they have been. And I don't know if there is a party in this country that speaks to those people anymore. I really don't. I don't think the Republican Party, by the way, is a party anymore. I think it's a cult. It's a cult of personality. When friends of mine like Adam
Kinzinger, common enemy.
When friends of mine like Adam Kinzinger and Pete Meyer don't have a home, right? When they're being when they're being actively primaried, like Adam's a great guy. He's a true American. He's a patriot. He gives a shit about this country, right? Pete Meyer has been a friend of mine for 15 years, right? Pete gives a damn about this country to the point that he got on a plane and flew to Afghanistan in the middle of the evacuation trying to help out just because he thought as a vet and a member of Congress, he might be able to get people through the gate faster. Like, he took a lot of shit for that, by the way, for what he did because people called it a political stunt. He was just going over there trying to help out. Like, he's a guy who gives it. These are all people who are being actively targeted because they didn't bend the knee to the dictator. And that's what frightens me about Trump. This idea that if you are, I'll give you my favorite example. One of my business partners is a dyed-in-the-wool Republican. During the 2016 election, he entered the election by bundling cash for Jeb Bush. When Jeb Bush dropped out, he wrote one paper, a national security policy position paper for Lindsey Graham. Because he wrote a position for Graham in the primary, the Trump world deemed him not politically allegiant enough to ever serve in the Trump White House. He was banned. He told me, I cannot get a job in this administration because I didn't show enough fealty. That terrifies the fuck out of me. That's such mafioso shit. That's not how you get good governance. That's how you get nepotism.
What are you talking about though? Like, Matt, like you say a comment like that, you got to look at it on the other side as well. You just talked about on the Biden side. You know, we opened up the meeting with saying, how come they haven't had you on media since 3-4 months ago?
Because they don't want to hear the truth.
Yeah, so this isn't loyalty is expected from both sides. I mean, don't get it twisted. This is not like
awful.
I don't disagree that it's awful, but loyalty is expected from both sides. You can't just look at it from the one side to the other side. So
no, listen. I'm not here to listen. I'm just bringing up. I bring up Trump because I personally hate the guy. Okay, and I think he is honestly the biggest threat to this country's long-term survivability. I know that you guys might be fans, but that man is.
No, I'm not a Trump fan.
I'll put it in 2017. I'll show you the notes. You can take a look at. What does that say? What date is on that?
January 1817.
January 18, 2017. These are notes that I wrote 2 days before he took office. It's entitled How They Take Over, or If I Were Putin, Here's How I'd Take Over. The guy is a Russian asset. And I know you don't want to hear this, but I'm telling you this is someone who used to. No,
gosh,
I work.
Matt.
The Steele dossier?
It's not the Steele. Listen, it's his behavior. Why is it that he meets with Putin one-on-one without translators in the room and we never get a transcript from it? Why? Because he's checking in with his fucking handler, all right? I used to do this for a living. You don't think I can look and see? You don't think I can look across the table and see somebody that I would have recruited? He's a fucking.
You lost me there, bro. You lost me there.
So explain why.
Yeah.
Explain why.
All right. So the Russian playbook is all about what's called disinformation, compromise.
Sure.
Compromising.
I had Jack
information.
Barsky on 2 weeks ago. He's a former KGB. I'm fully aware of what you're talking about.
So look at how Trump then engaged with the American people. Anytime he was criticized, it's fake news. He went and targeted people who wouldn't bend the knee. Look who got attacked constantly by Trump world. McCain in particular. They went after John McCain. Why? Because he was the only member of the party with enough clout that might be able to push back on his cult of personality. So what do? They try to go after his legacy. They try to go after and get compromising information to him. Why is it that Lindsey Graham flips like this? Lindsey flips like this because Lindsey is gayer than the day is long, and he's afraid that if that comes out in South Carolina, he doesn't get reelected. That's why he suddenly goes from being John McCain's best friend. I remembered them when they were I used to hang out with these people. I saw them. They were dear friends.
You're dropping some absolute bombs right
and
now.
What does this have to do with Russia? Go back to the Russia
What I'm telling
topic.
you is that, so...
Make your point on Russia. That's what I'm curious.
Trump is trained to act like a Russian asset would. He's trained to take over power in the way a Russian asset, if they were in place, would. Look at what he's gotten us to do. In 4 years, we all now yell at each other. We don't trust anything.
That was Obama's second term that started.
But we really don't trust it now. He poured jet fuel on it. Why? If you're an American president, is your job to unite and lead this country and make it better?
Oh my God.
Or is it, hold on, do you feel like you came out of that presidency more united or more divided?
More divided, for sure.
Okay, hold on. I listened to you guys talk for 10 minutes. My turn.
Sure.
All right. If you feel like you came out of it more divided, let me ask you this. What is the job of the American president? It's to fight for this country. It's to make this country great again, for example. You really feel like you came out of this great? You really feel that the animosity and the strife that we all feel when we talk about this son of a bitch is good? No, this is exactly what our enemies wanted.
I agree with that.
This is Putin's wet fucking dream. And so this is what I come back to. I went to a birthday party 2 weeks after the 2016 election. It was a bunch of Polish family. They had come here. They'd grown up in Poland under communism.
Yeah.
I was standing on the back deck with the dad, and we were talking about the election. And I asked him, so what do you think? And he goes, do you want my honest opinion? I go, yeah. And he goes, you Americans have no experience with what just happened to you. This is how they take over. And by the time you figure it out, it'll be too late. And it terrifies me because I loved this country. And it's stuck in the back of my mind this whole time, right?
Sentimental story, but
no,
Matt,
look at
what's fascinating what's fascinating is I see it the same way, but I see it from a different perspective. So to me, I mean, everything you're saying I agree with, but I'm saying to myself, this started with Obama's second term, the division.
I'm sorry, you don't think he's an asset? Look what he tries to do. He discredits NATO. NATO is the one thing that has kept Russia in check for 70 years. And suddenly he's questioning
wants them to pay their bills.
Why is it that every foreign policy thing that man did was in favor of Putin? Why is it that it always benefited Putin? That is the one common...
The Chinese trade deal benefited Putin?
Yes, absolutely. The Chinese trade deal benefits Putin.
How?
Are you kidding me?
No, seriously.
All right, Russia is sitting right next to China. They're part of the Belt and Road strategy that China wants. They're trying to integrate a market over there. Anything that benefits China helps out Russia's economy. Russia is just as dependent as the Chinese as we are. They don't want the Chinese economy to collapse just as much as we don't. You have to understand, Putin is playing a much, much longer game. The best way I just heard it described is when the Cold War ended, we spiked the ball at the 1 yard line. We didn't put our foot on their throat. This is a KGB officer who couldn't stand the fact that his country lost. And he's been playing the long game ever since.
Let me ask a question. So go back and tell us this saint of yours that was perfect at foreign policy. Who do you put as a standard? Who's the gold standard for you?
I don't think there's a saint in U.S. foreign policy.
But who's your gold standard? Because you hate this guy, so give us the gold standard.
Harry Truman.
Harry Truman's your gold standard.
If you were to pick an American president that was able to articulate, I mean, the Truman.
Yeah, but you hate this guy. You hate Trump.
You want to know why I hate him?
Yeah, I'm still curious to hear it.
Because people like you seem to like him.
Are you out of your mind? Do you know people like me? People like me escape the bullshit of people like you that bought into the games being played against guys like him.
I think you're what makes this country great, and I can't figure out why someone as smart as you.
Do you want me to explain to you why? It's not. But wait a minute. You make it seem like this is a Trump podcast.
No, it's not. But like, I don't understand. Forgive me.
Yeah.
The way I look at him is binary. I can't look at him and see good things.
I can look at Obama and see good things. I can look at Biden and see good things. I can look at Bill Clinton and see good things.
Then you're better than I am.
It's not about being better than you are, buddy. It's not about that. I love America. And I don't look at people from the standpoint. I've sit down with mobsters, gangsters. I've sit down with, communists. I love talking to communists because it's a great conversation for me. I don't sit there and say, I hate this guy. See, the challenge with your side, because you sound like a broken record right now, as if it's CNN or MSNBC. Do you know what happened to their ratings when the world found out they were full of shit with Russia? Go look at their ratings. Go look at their ratings the week after the world found out this entire dossier was funded by a lady named Hillary Clinton. What happened to the ratings afterwards? You know why? Because Americans were sitting there saying, we believed you. Schiff, we believed you guys. Cuomo, we believed you. Lamont, we believed you. Cooper, we believed you, and you fooled us. And now Brian Williams, who's a guy that interviewed you, says what? I'm done with this. I'm worried because of what's going on to America today. And he's stepping away. So for me, when it comes down to guys that come out and say things like that about Trump and Russia, oh my gosh, tell me one president. First of all, let's put the truth out there. Has this been a guy that his entire life has been a master troll and a bully?
Yeah.
Yes, I don't disagree. Has this been a guy that came from the streets of New York where negotiations are all hardcore and you got to go against other guys that are also hardcore because New York's DNA is like you are? This is what I like. Is that how New York is?
Yes.
This is New York's DNA. America's not Matt Zeller.
No.
America's not Chris Christie.
No.
America's not Hillary Clinton nor Trump. America's not Cuomo. America is more Tyler. America is more just a regular person that loves his country, right?
Right.
Okay. And then you come out and you say Russia, 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 Russia. When this guy was president, let me tell you what policies I like. I go policies. If you want to talk emotion, personality, you can hate that guy's personality. You can sit there and say, this guy knows the hell out of me. I know people that hate Obama. Hate Obama. Every Obama interview I've ever watched, whether it's with Leno, whether it's with whoever, I've never seen an interview where I didn't like hearing him speak. I would say, I'd love to watch a game with this guy. Doesn't mean I agree with his policies. So the emotions I pull out and I say, okay, let's look at policies. When this guy took office, he was the first guy that was not afraid of facing off China. First guy. That's it. You want to do this? Tariff. You want to do this? Tariff. You want to do this? Tariff. Look where we are today. These barrels that we were getting from China that was $2,500 a pop, now it's what? Containers. $40,000 a container. You think he will let them charge $40,000 today? Hell to the no. But Biden says what? End of message. End of message. What end of message? You're giving a speech on the guy that passed away. End of message. Trump stood up against China. Trump was willing to sit down with these guys, negotiate. Trump did Palestine and Israel. Like that's ridiculous to be able to do what he did 25 years. Economy was doing good for whites, blacks, Asians, Hispanics, women, everybody. But media hated this guy. Why? Because he called that bullshit. And that's his flaw. His fault was the following. If somebody as an advisor gives him a fault, it's the following. Charles Barkley said this the other day. Kevin Durant asked him, said, how come you're not on Twitter? He says, you know why I'm not on Twitter? He says, why? He says, because I'm old school. If I'm on Twitter and people talk shit to me, I feel like it's my responsibility to respond back. That's Barkley. Guess what? That's Trump. Trump needs to avoid 99% of the shit people say to him, and you just focus on the 1%. He wanted to fight everybody, and he made his life a living hell. That's on him. But that's how he's wired. That comes with the territory. But to say the guy's a Russian asset, Matt, I mean, you can say you disagree with his policies. You can say, Stormy Daniels, McDougal. You can say grab him by this with the Bush story. You can say McCain, which was an absolute, to me, what the hell are you doing going after somebody, POW? This guy served the military. You don't have the right to call out another military person. How come all these generals you don't get along with? What happened with Mattis? I get Milley. I get some of these guys. But what happened with some of these other guys? Of course, all of that stuff, fully agree. I totally get it. But to sit there and just put it all blanket. Hillary Clinton just came out and said the following. She said, I don't know if you guys read this or not. Mm-hmm. Hillary Clinton warns 2024 presidential election could be the end of democracy. National Review. Hillary Clinton warned that former President Trump is poised to run for election 2024 and said that if he wins, American democracy will suffer irreparable damages. If I were a betting person right now, I'd say Trump's going to run again. I think that would be the end of our democracy. Not to be point about it, but I want people to understand that this could be a make it or break it point. If you are someone of his ilk were once again to be elected president, especially if he had a Congress that would be doing his bidding, you would not recognize our country. For many outside observers, it looks as though Trump is gearing up to launch a campaign for 2024. 90% chance this guy's running. You know it, I know it. He's going to be running. But
I agree with what she said, by the way. I think it is. If he wins, it'll be the end of our democracy. We are not a functioning. By the way, we're not a functioning democracy right now.
No,
people said if people
on a federal level,
people said if Obama gets elected, communism's here.
But we're not a functioning democracy anymore on a federal level. We're not. Okay. We absolutely are not.
Unpack that.
Okay, so how to begin? You have one political party again that is a cult of personality. Okay, they do whatever Donald Trump wants. There's no party platform anymore, right? There's just whatever Trump wants. And I know that you keep saying he's not a Russian asset, but why did the Republican Party change the platform at the Republican Party convention in 2016 when it came to Ukraine once he took the nomination? Why was it that was changed? Why did he try to pull us out of NATO? I'm sorry, you had everything the one thing that you never said to me that explained is his Russian policy.
After all the investigations, show one proof he's a Russian asset instead of just making accusations. Show the proof. For example, if somebody says Biden, daddy, the big guy, $10 million, there is proof.
Okay.
The New York Times story when it was blocked by Twitter,
that's proof. Look at how much money he gets through Deutsche Bank. Who do you think funds Deutsche Bank?
What I'm trying to tell you is show me after the last 3.5 years, what kind of investigation could they have done on him?
He's such a shitty businessman. He can't even get lended to by anybody else other than the one bank that the Russians specifically fund. I'm sorry. Like, come on.
Stop it. You're saying he's a shitty businessman.
Absolutely.
He's a shitty businessman.
He's a horribly shitty businessman.
You're losing credibility on that side.
Really?
This guy's a bad businessman?
How many of his casinos went bankrupt? How many contractors did he never pay? He's losing his hotel in Washington, D.C. right now.
How do you think business works?
Really?
How do you think business works?
He had daddy's money. You know, they figured out that if he had taken the loan his father gave him in the 70s and he had simply just invested in an index fund, he'd be worth $25 billion today. That's how I know he's a shitty businessman. He couldn't even keep up with the market.
Yeah. So that just to me bleeds envy and frustration.
It's not envy and frustration.
You're upset.
No, he's a silver.
It's totally fine if you're upset with the guy.
No, what I'm upset is what he's done to my country.
What he did to your country in 4 years.
Yes. He poured jet fuel on a fire. You're the president of the United States. You're supposed to unite us.
Who's the last unifier we had in America?
That's a great question. I've been thinking that for a long time. I've been really trying to ask myself like who would be the last, and it probably is Reagan. You'd think like maybe because like we think about like when it's the last landslide election. 84.
I think Bill was able to get both sides to
Bill and Newt Gingrich, the contract with America.
Fantastic. You take Monica Lewinsky out. Take that out.
That's fair. Okay, maybe.
I say Bill and Reagan.
That's kind of the start of the Monica Lewinsky thing. I think is kind of the start of this Hatfield and McCoy fight that ended up happening in Washington.
It starts with the contract with America, and the reason why is it starts in the '94 election. So the '94 election, you have to understand, this is a seminal election in American history. The House of Representatives at that point for 40 years has been held by the Democratic Party. Okay, the Senate's flipped a couple of times, but the House has been held for think about it, for 40 years. That's my entire life, right? It's 40 years.
Yep.
Okay,
used to be the working man party. That's why.
So here's what happens in '94. Newt Gingrich goes around to all the Republican folks running for office that year against Democrats, and he says, "Here's the common strategy. You're going to ask the person you're running against in the debates, can you name the price of milk back home?"
I remember that.
And elected members couldn't. And the reason why was because the culture in Washington at the time was if you got elected to the House or the Senate,
time on the Beltway.
You moved your family to D.C. You didn't go back home to your district maybe other than a couple of times a year.
You got absorbed into the swamp.
But you met people. You went to the same church together, or synagogue together. Your kids played on the same little league teams, right? Your spouses knew each other socially. It made compromise and working together easier because these were people that you had personal relationships with that you might have policy differences and disagreements, right? I don't think Patrick and I are ever going to agree on Trump being a Russian asset, but hopefully at the end of the day we can shake hands and walk away from this.
Sure.
That's because
that'll always be the case.
Yeah,
you don't ever. Have to worry
I know
about
that, but that's how Washington used to be.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that anymore now, because now they're not there. They're there Tuesday to Thursday, a couple of weeks a year, right? And then they're back home and they're on TV and they're screaming at each other and they don't know one another.
Interesting.
I'm not blaming one side or the other. I'm just saying everything changes with that one election.
I don't disagree with that.
And it's because it's that culture change that I honestly think changes the American.
But to link it, bro, to saying Trump is the guy that created the division.
He didn't create it.
We haven't. We've had this
jet fuel on it.
To be fair, is it fair to say? Let's see if you can be reasonable here. I'm hoping you can be reasonable here and take the emotions out. is it fair to say that out of all the people that have been elected during our lifetime, you and I are the same age. I think we're 3 years apart, and he's 2 years younger than you. 4 years younger. You're 36 or 30?
Yeah, 36.
36. Okay. So I'm 43. You're 40. He's 30. You're 40.
I'll be 40 in January.
Okay, so you're 39. So, okay, is it fair to say the last 40 years, Carter winning, Reagan winning, Senior winning, Clinton winning, Junior winning, the GW winning, Obama winning, Trump winning? Is it fair to say the biggest shell-shocking winner where you were like, what the hell just happened is Trump?
100%.
Is it even close?
No.
What do you put close to that?
I couldn't. It was such a shock to my system.
Dude,
I couldn't sleep that night.
I was at 3:30 up in the morning. I'm on the phone with Tom. Tom's like, he won. I said, no. New York Times just reported it. I said, there's no Hillary's got the resume. Newsweek had the magazine ready, madam.
I know.
Everybody, that magazine right now is like priceless. Everybody's trying to buy that magazine because it's so hard. It's like a limited edition product, right? We're sitting there, we're like, this guy just won. Okay, so imagine a guy that's an underdog, comes in, talks shit, calls everybody out whether he's right or wrong, and half of America votes for this guy. So either half of America is a bunch of idiots, deplorables, which you and I agree that they're not.
They're not. They're angry and frustrated.
I agree.
And they felt that he tapped into something, that he heard them.
Beautiful.
It's less about him, guys. I'm telling you, it's
about
more
them.
about the
voting against versus voting for.
Yes,
I don't disagree.
Dude, my entire family is Democrats, and I'm telling you, they're gone. They're off the rails. They have not voted Democrat for the first time in their lives because they do not feel like these Ivy Leaguers. They're always talking above them. They're always lecturing them. They're always blaming them. And it feels like these people have the international community's best interest in mind and not our best interest in mind. And we resent that. So that's where this comes from. And Donald Trump
tapped into it.
He pulled one of the greatest. He pulled one of the greatest illusions of all time. This is a guy that grew up 90 floors above everybody else with a silver spoon in his mouth, and somehow convinced West Virginia coal miners he was one of them. So I mean that just goes to show you how badly, and honest to God, Matt, and this is kind of where I see it differently than you do. He took the Obama playbook. The Obama political playbook. And I think Obama is the greatest politician of my lifetime. But he took their playbook and turned it on its head and ran their playbook. You disagree with me? Well, you're racist. You disagree with me? You hate America. Took the exact same tactics, inverted it. And if you think that's pouring fire, maybe it is. To me, it's a Hegelian dialectic. You see somebody do something and it works, what do? You emulate it. So one of the other big things that happened for a guy like me over these last 4 years, I did not vote for Trump the first time. I did vote for Trump the second time because I felt like Democrats did not learn their lesson. At some point, they just had to be like, you know what, guys? Socialism is a touchy issue. We're asking for a lot of the hours of your life in taxes, and we're not really showing our work here. And there's a ton of waste in government that we're not addressing at all, but we're just asking you for more and more and more of your money. Maybe we shouldn't have just said, if you disagree with us, you're racist. That was probably a bad tactic. Sorry about that. That's kind of all they had to do.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.